Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast brought to you by Nerdtropolis. I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. And joining me once again is my co-host, Drew Munhausen, the professional media and movie mastermind. What's going on, Drew?
Not too much. I was sitting here trying to think of what kind of pun I wanted to make. Like, we're going to take you straight to the pound, or I don't know. I don't know.
Don't look
Beetle
at my notes.
puns.
Do not look at my notes. I will surprise you with some. They're not going to be great.
Oh no. That just scares me more than anything, Sean.
But I see if you adopted some cuties behind you.
My buddy Reggie is over here. My buddy Bug is over here, and then I'm blocking. What are the other dogs' name? Hunter and Maggie are behind me, the other dogs from Strays.
You remember the names better than I did.
But, I can't act like I don't have Wikipedia up in front of me, so I'm at an advantage here.
Yeah, but excited to do another podcast. If you don't know about the Moviegoers Society podcast, we dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics to the latest blockbusters, and we're on episode 6 now. That's right, we're doing this 6 weeks in a row. I'm pretty surprised in this. But we're diving into a double feature this episode. We're going to be doing Strays and Blue Beetle, both now playing in theaters. But before we get into them, we want to make sure that you can connect with us online. You can find me on every type of social media at Sean Taj. You can follow Nerdtropolis at Nerdtropolis on everywhere on social media, as well as in Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, even on YouTube. And you can actually find us on Pinterest, surprisingly. Yes, you can find Nerdtropolis on Pinterest if you did not know. And don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. And Drew, where can they find you? We're not contributing to Nerdtropolis.
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find me on Letterboxd at Drew Munhausen. That's where I'm always posting about what stuff I'm watching. Or you can find me over at Fresh Out the Podcast, for actually later this week, we're going to be celebrating our 100th episode of the show. So that is exciting. But yeah, I think that's everywhere.
Yeah, that's super exciting. 100 episodes. We're on 6. We'll get there one day, hopefully. We'll see what happens.
We will. Absolutely. It goes by faster than you think. Trust me.
That's true. I can't believe it's episode 6 now. And also, don't forget to catch up on previous episodes of the Moviegoers Society podcast. And you can also tune into my podcast that I do, Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents, which is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even on the Nerdtropolis YouTube page. I do a lot of interviews with actors, directors, producers, anyone from the industry, really, that I can get my hands on via Zoom. But I have a great 40-minute conversation with this guy named Brendan Small. Some of y'all might know who he is, maybe not. But he is behind the great show I love. It's called Home Movies. It was back in the day in 2003 that there was this animated series called Home Movies. And he's also the mastermind behind Metalocalypse that a lot of us love, and created that fictional band of Death Clock, which is actually kind of a real band. They have a real band that plays the music that he is a part of. And they will be going on a tour with Baby Metal, kicking it off in Houston. So super exciting. So definitely check out that interview. It's 40 minutes long. It's great. I've had a lot of great comments from people that said they've loved it, because I don't think Brendan Small has done an interview like this. I dive deep with him and I show him my appreciation for what he has created. A lot of great stuff. So that's super exciting. But I think now, Drew, let's head to the pound and visit some Strays. Why don't we, huh?
Let's do it. Okay, let's start. Whenever you have, so when I first saw a trailer for Strays, the first trailer I saw was the Red Band trailer. So you always know with movies that debut their Red Band trailers early, like they are going for that R rating. You know, they want to show you how raunchy this movie is beforehand, give you a little bit of a taste. And I'm not going to lie, I actually found that trailer to be pretty funny. Like, it's rare that a trailer for me is genuinely funny, but Strays, for whatever reason, it's a silly concept. You know, these dogs that with the dirty mouths and just making comedy out of normal dog isms is funny to me in general as a dog owner. And so I went to see this movie though with kind of a cautious optimism. But I just kind of assumed this is going to be one where all the funny parts are in the trailer. And that was not the case for me personally. I was laughing throughout this entire movie. I thought this is one of the funnier movies I've seen in theaters in a long time. And maybe I had low expectations, but also environment is key for a movie like this, right? I saw this in a theater, a full theater. It was packed and everybody was laughing.
Was everyone adults in this theater, Drew?
No, actually, there were a few parents there with young children that I was shocked to see. Like at one point, midway through the movie, a mom's taking a young child out to like go to the restroom or something. And I thought, hopefully they're leaving, like, and she's realized this is not appropriate. But no, they came back. So yeah.
So I'm with you. There were
actually a few.
When I watched this movie, I was surprised to see kids on my right, kids on my left, kids behind me, and I'm not sure what was going on. I was kind of shocked per se, and it didn't ruin the movie for me, but I was like, felt a little uncomfortable having these kids watching this really tough rated R film. And so I guess this is my warning. This is my warning for parents out there. I'm not telling you how to parent your kid. If they can handle this type of movie, they can handle it. But if they've never seen a crude, absolutely crude rated R comedy that's lewd and everywhere and raunchy, do not take them to this. They're going to ask so many questions after this. They're going to learn a lot of new words that they're going to tell their friends and say it in school. So it's going to open up a whole can of worms. This is not live action Paw Patrol, okay? This is not what that is. So just a warning there. Watch the trailer. Watch the Red Band trailer, like Drew said, maybe, and just get a vibe for it and go from there. But this is your warning. Your only warning you're getting.
To add on to that, it's not like it's even elevated R-rated humor. Like this is like tons of poop jokes and humping jokes and jokes about private parts and just, I mean, like this is about as raunchy as it gets for a movie, especially in recent memory. I don't remember the last time I saw something this crude in theaters.
Yeah, it's been a while. I can't tell you. And there was a lot of moments where I was just kind of in my seat looking away. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on in front of me.
So that's, but now going on to the movie itself, though, like aside from the audience and who's coming in, as far as the movie itself, I maybe it's because I'm a dog person, but dog humor works for me. Like it just works, period. I find dogs to be funny, and especially, dog mannerisms. There's a lot of things that you can kind of pull apart there to make some good jokes out of. And this movie gets into all those kinds of dog jokes, but it's pretty clever. Just the way there's a scene involving fireworks, and from the dog's perspective, and as a dog owner who has two dogs that get really scared of fireworks, seeing the perspective of these dogs in the movie getting horrified at fireworks was super funny. It totally points out and makes fun of tropes from dog movies, whether it's Homeward Bound or A Dog's Purpose or A Dog's Journey or Marley and Me or any of those. Like it points out the common tropes you see in those movies and totally makes jokes out of them that really worked for me, because we haven't really seen that. We've seen this formula for comedies before, sure. Like there's tons of comedies that make fun of other genres or that spoof other movies, but we really haven't seen a dog movie lean into the R rating and make fun of other dog movies. And so I thought this was like just a really fun playground for that. And the humor worked for me. The voices were great. Will Ferrell, who to me has had a lot of ups and downs in the past decade or so. Like I still find Will Ferrell to be hilarious, but there hasn't been a good Will Ferrell comedy in a while that has really stuck with me. And even though it's just a voice role in this, he's doing his kind of aw shucks gimmick as Reggie, the main dog, and it was so funny. The innocence he's able to portray as Reggie was great. And then you have the counter to that, which is Jamie Foxx as Bug, the dog that he meets essentially when he's abandoned. And Bug's this like kind of street smart little, what kind of dog? I can't think of what the dog is called.
He's like a Boston Terrier mix, isn't it?
It is a Boston Terrier.
And I don't know dog. But yeah, I think Jamie Foxx for me is what sold the movie. I thought he was amazing in this. I liked Will Ferrell. I liked everyone's performance. Even Randall Park as, what does he give? What type of dog is in the cone?
He's a Great Dane.
The Great Dane, yeah. So Randall Park's great as that, but I really liked Jamie Foxx. I think he was the spotlight character because Bugs does a lot of wild things and says some wild things, and his mindset's totally different. He's a whole different animal pretty much in this movie. But I really enjoyed Jamie Foxx in this, along with everyone else. But I think he was the standout for me.
Yeah, and Randall Park, Isla Fisher, I don't know, and then of course Will Forte is the main human, and he's just playing the dirtbag role better than anybody.
I think that's all he does. I feel like recently I see him in these weird roles as like the person you want to hate in the movie. Something.
Did you ever watch? Did you ever watch the show The Last Man on Earth?
I watched a few episodes.
Yeah, I watched a few seasons of that show, which I actually really liked. And I thought the comedy is really funny and he's good in that. And he's like taking that character that he's just come to perfect, but making him just somehow even worse. Just so terrible. I think the thing with a movie like Strays, though, comedies are tough, man, because you get a lot of harsh audience critics for comedies like this. And there are people walking out of my theater like, that was dumb, and people have been like, oh, the trailer looks dumb, it doesn't look funny. I'm like, okay, like, maybe live a little or just learn to have some fun. I don't know what else to say, because I just found this to be tickling my funny bone the whole time. I don't know what else to tell you. I just thought this was really funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed some of the comedy. This is where I think it's the first time Drew and I are going to disagree on this.
Okay, yeah, no, let me have it.
To my surprise. So I thought the comedic aspects of Strays presented like a mixed bag for me. It had some brilliant lands, and then some of them was real laughter, and some of them was just like, this is not for me. Because like I said, it's a little bit more crude, a little bit more raunchy, just a little bit more like disgust as well, which is funny because I really enjoyed Jackass Forever. I went to see that movie in theaters, and I haven't laughed that long in a very long time, just how ridiculous it is. Like I guess this movie is kind of like Jackass Forever. It's a little different. And it's hard to say, oh, I can watch a Jackass movie, but I can't enjoy Strays. I think maybe the dog stuff didn't hit me that well. My girlfriend had a great time. She has dogs and cats, and knows all about how their personalities can be. So maybe if you are a pet owner, you can get this film much better than everyone else. But I do appreciate what they were trying to do. I just couldn't laugh at everything. But I did have a good laughter, a good chuckle, but majority of the movie, but still, a lot of the jokes did not land for me.
There was one part in particular, and it might be one of the parts that it's one of the grosser parts that probably didn't land for you, that involves an escape from the pound.
I did think that was a brilliant one. It wasn't as funny, but I thought the plan was brilliant.
But there's the initial part of just trying to get the keys, and that was the part in the audience where you could hear, like, you could just feel the disgust in the crowd, but then as it kept going, you just had to give in to laughter. Like, that's kind of what happened to me.
There was people in theater not understanding what was happening because no one was giving a reaction to what was unfolding until they saw it, and they're like, oh, whoa, what's going on here? So that's the funny part, actually. There is, and I had to look away. That was just ridiculous for me. But a lot of people couldn't figure out what was going to be shown on screen during that scene. I guess it worked out what they were trying to do for that. So, but the plan itself of the jail, what they were trying to do is kind of clever. But like I said, there's a lot of hits or misses for me. One voice actor, which I knew she was in this movie, but I couldn't figure out who she was. But they said Sofia Vergara was in this movie, and I was like, where? How? I'm after movie. I look it up. She's the couch.
Yeah.
So there's a couch that shows up for a reason, but I didn't put the two together. So that's another great kind of voice to have in the movie. So it has a really good voice cast. I would tell you that, and a handful of pretty good jokes.
And the fact that you've just mentioned that, and that there's a talking couch in this movie, kind of tells you everything that you need to know about the comedy and where it's going. And yeah, the director, Josh Greenbaum, the last movie that he directed that released theatrically was Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. I don't know if that's a movie you saw, but that's one that I watched.
That one, and I don't remember what I gave it, but it was okay.
I watched that one at home with my wife, and so it was like right up her alley of humor. And I remember being pleasantly surprised by that one too. So Josh Greenbaum, maybe an underrated comedy director moving forward if he wants to do more of these, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, it's just with any kind of comedy, your mileage may vary. I saw this in a packed theater and was laughing a lot. If you're watching this at home alone, maybe the humor won't land as much. I don't know. That being said, I don't think this movie performed very well over the weekend, which is a shame. But I could see this one doing really well on streaming in the future. Like kind of in the similar realm as the easiest comparison to make to this movie is Good Boys. Which is where they have the kind of preteen kids that are super raunchy and everything. And they kind of do the same formula as that here, but with dogs. And Strays worked way better for me personally. I thought Strays was much funnier.
I had problems with it for some reason, with maybe pacing, or it's only an hour and 33 minutes, but I felt like it was long. I don't know what it was, but for me, maybe it's just a little too slow. It's like a story like Homeward Bound. It's a rated R Homeward Bound. So they're on a journey. And so there's a lot of travel in between a lot of scenes, but I felt like it was slow for me and a lot of the jokes in it hit me. So I struggled with this one, and I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, which is still a pretty good rating. It's really good entertainment, but I had trouble with it maybe midway through.
You actually messaged you about this beforehand because I wrote the review. It's on Nerdtropolis. And giving a star rating to a comedy like this is really hard. I was like, I don't know. Is this for me? Is it a 3.5? Is it more? Or is it less? I don't know. And I ultimately ended up giving this a 4 out of 5. I'm going to stick with that just because again, I just haven't laughed that hard in a theater in a long time. And I think that there's something to be said for that. I wanted to reflect that in my star rating, which is why I went ahead and gave it a 4 out of 5 stars.
So for every 2 people that go into this movie theater, at least one of them will like it. That's the statistic for sure. My girlfriend loved it. She totally loved it. You loved it too, so it's going to find its audience for sure. And it seems like it's going to be little kids based on my theater experience. It's going to be little kids loving this movie and maybe some preteens, maybe some kids begging their parents to go see this, thinking it's a live action Paw Patrol, or tricking their parents and being shocked what they're getting. So it will find its audience for sure.
I was just looking at a curiosity. I don't like to give all the credit to the Rotten Tomatoes scoring system, but the fact that this has a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes kind of lines up with what we've said. Like it could go either way. I saw a lot of reviews for this that were overwhelmingly positive, similar to mine. And I saw some that had just horrible dog headlines and, just like this one, takes it to the pound, or, it's neutered at the box office and, stuff like that. But just like with me and Sean, we're kind of on both sides of it. And it seems like that's the critical response too. But for me personally, this one worked. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, well, you mentioned box office, and I'm just looking. I don't think I had a chance to check out what happened this weekend, but Strays opened up at number 5 with about 8.3 million. That's really low for
which
Universal.
I think is about half of what it was projected to make. So that's not good.
But Universal Pictures also has a top number 3, Oppenheimer. So Universal's still doing okay. They're floating pretty well. And then we have Barbie still kicking it in at number 2, and then unfortunately what looks like Ninja Turtles at 4. They did like a 44% drop.
Ninja Turtles has been doing pretty well. Like it's been holding all right. So
it's holding, but it's dropping more drastically than Barbie. So the fact that Barbie keeps holding steady and everyone else is kind of dropping, it is what it is. It's
fair. I would just say you can't. I wouldn't compare the two just because Barbie is an anomaly and it has become a phenomenon, and it's definitely not the norm. Like the comparison has been made, but it's true. Barbie is this year's Top Gun Maverick. Like it's probably going to be the highest grossing movie of the year if it keeps going on the way that it is. And there's like nothing on the horizon for a few weeks, really. I mean, what, the Equalizer 3 comes out in a couple of weeks, and there's nothing. So I wouldn't be surprised if Barbie even manages to go back into number 1 in Blue Beetle's second week. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how much Blue Beetle drops in its second week.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way we take now a heroic leap into a DC comic book that has been brought to life with Blue Beetle. Like you said, it is opened up at the top spot. And Drew, how much was that at? That was at, it says 25.4 million.
Yeah, right. And 25 million.
Yeah, so much less than expected. I mean, DC's getting hit hard. for a lot of reasons, and especially the strike is also not helping anybody, to be honest. I mean, hopefully they figure something out, but it's hurting both sides.
I definitely want to jump into that because we actually got a submitted question through our Facebook about it, but I want to jump to that after we've talked a little bit about the movie.
Yeah, let's do that. So we'll jump in right into Blue Beetle, and I really enjoyed this movie. So this is the same night I got to go see Blue Beetle. Drew went to watch Strays, and then today I went to go watch Strays, and Drew went to go watch Blue Beetle. So it all worked out. Blue Beetle is filled with heart. I'm going to tell you straight up. It has so much heart and so much cultural heritage in this film. People say it's very cookie cutter, but a lot of movies are cookie cutter. But it has a great and familiar narrative for sure. That's definitely for sure. But you got this character, Jamie Reyes, who is a recent college grad returning home to Palomera City.
Jaime.
What did I say? Jamie? What did I say?
Mm-hmm.
Of
Which
course
they
I
make
did.
jokes about that in the movie, so that makes it even better.
Jaime Reyes. My apologies right there. And it's played by Xolo Maridueña, who is great in this movie. And so we got Jaime Reyes, and he gets back home, and he has to figure out a way to balance his dream that he wants for the future and the harsh realities of family struggles. So it's a pretty good story that a lot of people can relate to. And it's indeed an origin story that blends superhero elements with emotional family experiences. I thought Xolo was great. What'd you think about his performance, Drew?
I really liked him. He definitely won me over throughout.
Yeah, he was great. And everyone knows him from Cobra Kai. And Drew and I were just talking about how he's 22 years old right now? And he started Cobra Kai when he was 16. And I didn't know he was 16 when he did Cobra Kai. I knew he was young, but I didn't know he was that young when he started Cobra Kai. So everything he's doing actually seems age appropriate for the character. When he's on Cobra Kai, 16 makes sense. Being a recent college grad, 22 years old, I mean, that fits the mold. So he fits perfectly in this. Absolutely love it. And he's a star in the making. He's already a big star in Cobra Kai. And now with this, it's just going to propel him forward, especially if James Gunn said that this Blue Beetle could return. And if he does, it's going to be Xolo. So that's super exciting to hear. I thought the director, Angel Manuel Soto, captures the source material pretty darn well. This is like the third iteration of Blue Beetle. There is interesting story about Blue Beetle in general.
Are you saying like in the comics, like in the continuity of the comics, that Jaime Reyes is the third Blue Beetle as far as that goes? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Well, while you pulled it up, because I can kind of say like I have no ties to Blue Beetle. Like I've never read a Blue Beetle comic. I've read plenty of DC comics. I don't think I've ever read a DC comic that featured Blue Beetle, even as a supporting character. So like, I don't know much about the history of this character at all. So just for full transparency. So watching this movie, like I truly was going in totally blind other than, the basic premise.
Yeah, and so this movie does reflect on some of the previous Blue Beetles. Definitely Ted Kord is in this movie, as in the Kord Enterprise and his daughter. The original Blue Beetle is Dan Garrett. So people that are saying, oh, this is not my Blue Beetle, this is not something I read, this is the third iteration of Blue Beetle, and they're not forgetting the past of Blue Beetle.
Is that a thing? Are people mad that they're not doing the first, like going with the OG Blue Beetle from the comics?
There's always an audience saying why you picked this version instead of the other ones because of what they read, because this iteration is somewhat newer, but it's a modern era of the Blue Beetle, which is great.
I guess that's kind of similar to the Ant-Man comparison. Like that's the most obvious one because, we got Scott Lang as the star of the movie when, Hank Pym was the OG, which he's in, he's in it, but Hank Pym is not Ant-Man in as far as the current MCU continuity.
Right. He was in the past life. So that's actually a good comparison. That's what this film is doing. It's kind of making a version of Ant-Man where there was still a previous version. But regardless, the director Angel Manuel Soto does a great job with it. He brings Palomera City to life. I really loved the landscape they build. I love the skyline of Palomera City. I just wish we got more of it, actually. I thought it looked really cool, super futuristic city. But we didn't get to see much of that, unfortunately. But I want to see more of that, hopefully, in the next movie. And there's a lot of nostalgic charm in this movie. I felt like I was watching a 90s superhero movie. And this is not saying in a bad way. There maybe have been some like weird CGI moments that was not as sharp as it could be. But I was just getting 90s vibes in general. This is the type of lighthearted and fun and colorful superhero movie that we would have gotten in the 90s.
Yeah, I totally agree. And especially that color palette with kind of the neon blues and purples that are really dominant here, especially in that skyline, like you said, and in the city. I loved that. It like kind of retro, almost late 80s, 90s vibe. All of that really worked for me.
Yeah, I want to see more of it for sure. We didn't get enough of it. And the cast is great. People were trying to say, oh, it's kind of like Shazam, the family's involved. I'm like, it's nice to see when a family is involved in a story. It's always great. There shouldn't be any complaints about that. But this whole family, this Reyes family, they all rock to me. I love every aspect of them.
So on that note, it's funny you bring that up because I thought about that when watching this movie, right? The family is a big part of this. And it's kind of been, I feel like, the DC go-to recently. Like a lot of the themes of their recent movies have been family. You got Shazam 2 or Shazam Fury of the Gods, right? Like that brings in the family once again. Even The Flash in its own way is about family. You know, it's all about him trying to go back and save his mom and, you know, reunite his family and kind of creating his own little family with his past self, and with Michael Keaton's Batman, and Michael Keaton's Batman's lack of family plays into it. Like there's a lot of family is always at stake here or part of it. And of those, and now Blue Beetle to me executes that the best, like way better than the other two, especially better than Shazam.
Fast franchise too. They do family better than the Fast franchise. Let's just say that.
Yep.
So that's really, you know, where this movie is all about. It's really great. I think my favorite after Sholo's performance, I really love George Lopez as Uncle Rudy. He adds comic relief and has a lot of heartfelt moments, and is like kind of the Alfred to Jaime Reyes. Is what
I don't know
like.
if I'd compare him to Alfred necessarily.
the modern Alfred, as we see with Batfleck, you know, where he actually is hands on and he's building things, and he's a bit of a techie.
Okay, that's fair.
There's different versions of Alfred, so maybe I should make it clear which version of Alfred I'm thinking of. You know, that's just a little comparison, maybe not fully accurate, but he has a lot of great performance in this. And I loved seeing George Lopez, and I think he went wild. They let him loose in this movie, and I think he did great.
I couldn't tell you the last time that I've seen George Lopez in a movie, and I know he had a sitcom the past year or so, and so I know he's been around, but I kind of have to eat my words a little bit here because I don't want to say I scoffed at this movie, but I definitely was a little nervous for it because I'm like, your biggest stars are Susan Sarandon and George Lopez. Like, I didn't think that boded well from a box office standpoint. And Susan Sarandon's just she's villainous and she's fine, but she's just kind of doing typical like CEO businesswoman. I'm a bad guy. George Lopez, on the other hand, I thought he was pretty funny. Like he's used really well here, has some of the best facial hair that I've seen in a movie in recent memory. He's kind of the perfect comedic counterpoint to the main character, and like just like the oddball techie uncle really worked for him. I enjoyed George Lopez here.
Yeah, I think this Blue Beetle, it's PG-13, but I think obviously a younger audience can enjoy it. You know, it's a PG-13 film, but it's very Spy Kids like to me, this film, for many reasons.
That's a good comparison.
That's what I felt like midway through with some of the action and stuff like that. It does have some, you know, darker moments in the film, but there's a lot of Spy Kids action in here, and just the family aspect of it. Everyone's involved. Even Nana, the grandma, gets involved and does her thing. So it's really great.
And both movies kind of have Hispanic roots and cultures at the center, which I really enjoyed here, actually.
Yeah, that was really fun to see. It definitely celebrates Latin identity and explores the cultural heritage and family dynamics. It's such a great film for many reasons, as we mentioned, and I really hope it continues to do well, and it's not the last time we see Blue Beetle or Jaime Reyes. We need to see more of him. But I do have problems with this film at the same time, even though I enjoyed it so much. The pacing was pretty bad to me. It was all over the place for me. It's a 2 hour and 7 minute movie, and it doesn't have to be that long. It really doesn't. I think 2 hours and 7 minutes is a little too long for a Blue Beetle movie because there's more opportunities for more action to be showcased, but we didn't get it. I think we should have gotten more action because it was dragging at times with too much dialogue and too much just trying to figure things out. Because when the action came, it delivered. I'll say that. It delivered for sure. And especially the end battle is so rewarding payoff, but it just took too long to get to what we really wanted to see, especially some of the stuff we saw in the trailer is really towards the end. And then, but when we do see it, if you play video games and you play Injustice 2 and you play as Blue Beetle, they replicate a lot of his awesome moves. I will say that. So definitely a lot of cool stuff that they featured, but it just took way too long to get there.
I'm with you. I think that the biggest thing for a movie like this, it's like it's a pro and con, right? Is that this is a origin story. And especially the fact that it's an origin story for a character that a lot of people might not be as familiar with, right? Like, you know, we've seen multiple Batman origin stories. We've seen multiple Spider-Man origin stories. Like, we don't ever need to see an origin story of those characters ever again. For somebody like me that's not familiar with Blue Beetle, I need a Blue Beetle origin story. I need to know what this character is all about. So there's a lot of that parts of that story that I really enjoy, but then there's a lot of parts of that like you said, the pacing becomes off because you're dealing with an origin story and you're having to introduce the audience not only to these characters but to this world and just what all's going on. And so I think that it was executed pretty well for the most part, but I'm with you. There's a few lulls and there's parts where the main character Blue Beetle gets kidnapped or taken by the enemies, and so he's kind of sidelined for a bit. So there's just a lot of like bad guy hoo-hawing about technology and whatever that you're like, okay, I get it. And so there are definitely some parts where it comes to a lull, but I thought that Blue Beetle himself was a cool character. I thought the design of the costume looked cool.
Practical too. It is practical. Obviously, it's enhanced with CGI and stuff like that. But they built that suit. There's a lot of pictures of him just wearing it on set, and just looks exactly the same it would on screen. Really impressive that they did a practical suit for this one.
And I like the way that the mask moved when he talked, and I don't know. I just the power set was cool, and the way that it looks when he flies or when he uses a shield or when his arms turn into various weapons. And with a character like this, I kind of was starting to get Iron Man vibes, right? Like especially in the later MCU movies when the nanobots or whatever you call it, whatever Tony Stark crazy technology is, where the suit kind of transforms around him and can do things. Like you kind of get that vibe here. Blue Beetle can make his suit do a lot of different things. But then even at one point, the voice in his head, that's like the part of the alien tech, even says like, essentially I can create anything your mind can imagine. So I'm like, okay, so I'm getting a little bit of Green Lantern mixed with a little Iron Man, with a lot of alien put into it. And so I thought that was really fun and different. And I also liked the arms that came up from the back of his suit that interacted with the environment and characters and things. I don't know. I thought all that was really entertaining, but then again, it's an origin story, right? So it's like, you just want to see Blue Beetle using this power set and fighting, but you have to go through the character learning how to use it and making some mistakes and trying to get control over it. So by the midpoint or a little over halfway, when you finally start to see Blue Beetle and some action scenes actually perform the way you want him to, it's very satisfying where you're like, man, I just want more of this. And so I think that goes with what you were saying about the pacing being off.
Right. And it is an origin story, but it's a Jaime Reyes origin story. And that's not trying to knock that or anything, but I want to learn more about the Scarab. I want to learn more about the previous Blue Beetle. There's a lot of Easter eggs and stuff like that. So there's more that they could have dived into, but obviously this is very focused on Jaime Reyes. Hopefully future installments will do that. Did you notice the sword that he created, the Buster sword? You know where that's from? That giant sword. Did you have a reaction from anybody in the theater when that came out?
Well, first off, I saw this movie at a 1:00 showing on Sunday, and there were about 5 other people in the theater with me, which is like a shame. I think speaks to just where people are out on this movie. My takeaway, and I don't know if this is right, but to me, it looked like Cloud's sword from Final Fantasy VII or something like that. Is that what it was supposed to be?
Yeah, the Final Fantasy sword. that's pretty awesome. I wish we got kind of more cool weapons and stuff because I love that little Easter egg, and I would love to see like maybe some jokes about some other things he would make or come up with that like maybe wouldn't work. But yeah, I love that they did that. That was pretty cool.
I also had a funny thought when watching this, which is in the beginning when he gets the blue scarab and what it looks like. Scarab imagery, just kind of cool to me. I don't know why. I liked the design of the blue shiny scarab that he had. It makes me think of like the Mummy movies starring Brendan Fraser and the scarab imagery, especially in the first one. And you get the little beetles that would crawl under the skin. Like it looked like that.
Oh, I don't want to think about that. That scene gets heebie-jeebies.
I know. But it just made me think of like, I don't know. I just kind of think, not that I want scarabs in my house or anything, but scarab imagery I think is pretty cool.
Right. And this technology is obviously not from this world, and there's a long history of it. And I wish we got to know more of that history. That's the thing. I just want to learn more about Blue Beetle. I'm not really avid in the comics for Blue Beetle. I've read maybe a couple issues in the past before, but I'm not too versed in it. So I kind of like these movies kind of teach me more about it. I mean, I could always go on a deep dive online, but I love seeing the visuals come to life from comic book to the screen. And no, it's a great movie. I thought it was visual stunning at times, and it balances the superhero action with emotional family dynamics. And I thought this was a great step forward, not just for DC, but superhero movie, the genre in general. So the diverse storytelling and just kind of throwing it all in for unknown characters. I know it's really tough. The box office is not really speaking loudly on these types of movies, but there could be a lot of reasons why. But I really enjoy this movie. I gave it a 4 out of 5, Drew.
I'm probably like in a 3.5 out of 5 range. I enjoyed it a lot. And I guess as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, like, ultimately, do I want to see more Blue Beetle? Like, would I want a Blue Beetle sequel? And it's a pretty simple yes for me after seeing this movie. Like, I would like to see more of the power set and more of this lore and what they could get into. So I know the future of DC is very interesting with their slate and what they're doing, and they're kind of like leaving it open that some of these characters could return. The nice part about Blue Beetle is that it had no ties to anything else, really. This was a true standalone origin story. They mention, I think, Batman and the Flash and Superman get mentioned, but like, of course they do in any DC thing. And those characters are always going to be there. So it's not like this has to fit into any one canon. Right now it's just the Blue Beetle canon. So I would definitely like to see more, and it's a shame that all that is kind of in flux. And I think that kind of gets into the next part of the conversation with the questions that we were asked, because it's just such a weighted conversation, Sean, and I feel like we've probably touched on it before, and if we didn't touch on it here, I've definitely talked about it over on Fresh Out the Podcast, with just the state of DC and what they've kind of done to themselves with their current slate, and minimalizing the current movies out because we know they're not part of the future and what all they're trying to set up for. But then they also try to leave it open, like they can come back. And I just don't know. We don't know,
The question was asked if Blue Beetle making the theaters is considered a success due to other films not really making it to theaters. Like Batgirl got canned after, I don't know how much of it's completed. And there's also a Wonder Twins movie that was canceled when it was in development. And so we kind of reflect on, is Blue Beetle already a success or will be a success? First off, to say the Batgirl situation, or all the situation, is because of the mess that was happening at Warner Brothers at the time. There was so much going on. So it's super unfortunate that a lot of people's hard work was not going to be seen. I was really looking forward to seeing Brendan Fraser as Firefly. I mean, that movie I thought would have done well, but I remember what people were saying, it was like, it felt like a CW movie. And if that's the case, that's pretty unfortunate if you're throwing that much money on it and hoping to recoup it. So I could go on and on about the Batgirl situation for sure.
Yeah, and shout out to Emmanuel who wrote in the question, and just like you said, regardless of box office numbers, is Blue Beetle movie making into theaters a success because of everything going on? And like you said, they've said that the whole Batgirl situation was a tax write-off, and obviously they're over there at Discovery, Warner Brothers Discovery, they're just trying to make money right now. Like they're majorly in debt. They're trying to do what they can. We're starting to see, they just announced, I think the headline came out that Ballers, the HBO show, is going to be on Netflix. Like that's the next step, is they're licensing their content out to other streamers to make money off of, which we're going to start seeing it more. I think I saw also that the Willow show is now off of Disney Plus because they're trying to do things with it there. Like they're trying to figure out how to make money with streaming, and it's just a whole mess. The Batgirl stuff is interesting because they found a way so that they could, make a little money back off of it. And there's so many varying reports about that movie too, that it's like, it had nothing to do with the quality, but then I've heard other things that are like, it was probably pretty bad and they wouldn't have done it if it was good. And, it's just all over the place. That being said, does this movie getting into theaters make it a success? I would say yes. I do. Like, first off, this movie had a budget of a little over 100 million, which is a lot of money, especially for a movie that was going to go straight to streaming. And in my mind, it's more money than what is justified for a movie that's going to go straight to streaming. So that budget is much more justified for the big screen, and it's still half the price than compared to a lot of big budget movies. I mean, they're saying
200, 300 million. There's some TV shows that were like 250 million just for a TV show or something like that, or for a series. Or what was the Lord of the Rings was $1 billion series? Like that's just wild.
And that's just for Amazon over there to just kind of play in a new space. And it's interesting. Like The Flash, they're saying could be anywhere from 200 to 300 million. And I know a lot of that has to do with delays and marketing, COVID, and there's a lot of things there. For this movie, is this movie going to make a profit in the theaters? Probably not. Based on its opening weekend, it's going to be tough. If you go by the standard logic that a movie has to make about twice its budget to be profitable, is Blue Beetle going to make over $200 million worldwide? I don't know. It opened to 25 million here, so that's I don't know where that'll top out here in the US, but I don't know if it's going to be profitable. That being said, I do think having this movie be in theaters automatically raises its prestige, so that when it does eventually go to Max, people are going to be like, oh, I want to watch that. I want to watch Blue Beetle. It was in theaters. I didn't get to catch it, whatever it may be. It's, as far as where we're at, school just started this past week. So maybe not all the kids are going out to movies and things this weekend, the first weekend after school started. I don't know. There's a lot of things that could go into effect. Earlier this year, Evil Dead Rise, that was supposed to be a movie made for HBO Max or Max service, and they put that one into theaters and it did really well. So obviously theaters are the way to go. And I think the studios are realizing that. We're going to start seeing more of these movies going to theaters. And I know that it costs them money to distribute it, but ultimately it's going to make more money than it would have if it had gone straight to streaming. And it's going to have a little bit more prestige. Will it be a straight up profitable movie? I don't know if we can say that, but it's just such a weird world we're in the world of streaming and them trying to figure out how to make a profit.
Yeah. And once again, this is a great question, Manuel, because it opens up a lot. And it depends how you measure success. If we're looking at box office numbers, it's not going to be the success it should have been. But as a DC film, I think it's a success for DC films. For the superhero genre, I think it's a success. And for the Latin community and for comic book lovers and everyone else, it's a success to me. Something we have not seen before. It's just like when they did Into the Spider-Verse and they brought Miles Morales into the big screen. Like that was a success for, I can't even say that. It's so much success. I'm saying it nonstop, but it's so successful to have those types of stories be told on the biggest screen possible for an audience to see. So that's how I'm measuring it, but I don't think it's going to do well box office. You know why? Because Barbie and Oppenheimer is still around. I don't know how these companies figure out when to release movies. If I was in charge, I would have been floating around way past all of this. The summer got so crowded. The biggest movies come out over the summer. And I'm not sure if that used to be a trend. I don't remember back in the 90s to early 2000s, if that's how it worked, that where you got like over close to a dozen big movies or I say big, but it depends how you say think of big to be released and how will they do. So that's a tough one.
And just again with Barbie and Oppenheimer, like those are such an anomaly, right? Especially when you see two movies that are released and essentially being competitive to one another, right? It was the competition opened against each other, but those movies ultimately ended up helping each other more than hurting each other. I think each one benefited off of the other's success, and the Barbenheimer thing was this kind of crazy phenomenon. And I don't know. I think Oppenheimer has actually done way better than it would have normally because it was up against Barbie. And yeah, but I don't think anybody could have seen the fact that even something released a month after those movies would still be kind of in the wake of of those movies and the power they had. And the fact that Oppenheimer and Barbie are still here in the top 3 at the box office. I think Barbie only made a few $1 million less than Blue Beetle did. And Barbie's in its 5th weekend. Yeah. Barbie's in its 5th weekend and only made $4 million less than Blue Beetle in its opening. So like Barbie's just a force to be reckoned with. And the box office is a strange place right now. But that being said, in my mind, theatrically releasing your movies is still the route to go.
Yeah. But you saw with MI7, they didn't get the success that they needed because Barbie and Oppenheimer just came and just took it away. So I'm not sure what these decisions are. With the Flash releasing, I believe, was it June? Flash was released. And then you have Blue Beetle in August. That's too close. That's 2 DC films that close to each other. They got to spread them out. Marvel just realized that and are trying to figure out their slate. Obviously, a lot of things play in factor. COVID played in factor in the past. Now you got the strikes. There's a lot going on. But I think they're understanding that you cannot put everything so close together when it comes to schedule releases. You got to let things breathe and give its time. You know, I remember what was in the 90s where like Home Alone was released and it took a while for it to hit. I think it was like in theaters for so many weeks before it really hit it to the top. And you had all these stretches for a long time where it was just a couple movies for 6 weeks. 6 weeks is a long time. And then you have a new set of movies come out for another 6 weeks and stuff like that. Everyone's just layering on top of each other. And I'm not sure what the studios are thinking, that we want to go spend $20 a ticket plus $40 in concessions and gas and babysitters and all this stuff to watch a movie every week. It just doesn't work that way. People are going to pick and choose what they want to watch. And probably once every 6 weeks, they're going to watch a movie is really what they're going to do.
Sean and I, however, are going to the movies every week. And that's pretty much because we're just a couple of psychopaths, but I enjoy it.
That's why we host the Moviegoers podcast. We are the ultimate moviegoers.
Right.
And our next episode, Drew, is currently a toss-up. I haven't really figured out what we're going to do. There's no really major blockbusters other than, Gran Turismo is still not out, but we have already covered that in the past episode.
But it got pushed. It's coming out this upcoming weekend, right? Is that when it got pushed to?
Yeah, it's coming this upcoming weekend, but our episode is already out for Gran Turismo. So we could choose from several things. And I kind of looked at whatever's going to interest you, because some of the stuff maybe I've seen or maybe not seen or will see. Is The Hill. It's a baseball story. It's based on a true story. There's Retribution with it's like Taken number 8 to me.
Oh, another one of the that's the newest Liam Neeson action movie.
Hulu's Vacation Friends 2 with Little Rel and John Cena.
Okay.
And then we can even maybe visit the Ahsoka series that comes out this week. We'll see what else comes out, because when we do these weekly, we gotta see what comes out in that time period. It's pretty thin. I will say
we're fortunate to start this podcast when we did around the time Mission Impossible came out, and now we're entering that kind of dead zone between now and when the award season movies really start to take hold. Although we'll just see what kind of happens and where we're at with the strikes and in another month or so. I don't know.
And then Drew and I have talked about maybe we need to visit some classics, because that's what we plan to also do with the Moviegoers Society podcast. We have not done that yet. I have been watching a lot of classics. I've watched, if you consider them classics, but I watched The Pest today. You ever see The Pest?
I have not.
Oh, so I watch a lot of Tubi, and I find some weird things on there. But The Pest is a 97 comedy starring John Leguizamo. It's the craziest that you'll see him in. He's very young and just, it's like slapstick comedy. It's pretty entertaining. There's just a lot of stuff I find on Tubi. So maybe we just do a Tubi watch because they have the most random nostalgic movies on there that you could find. And maybe we just do a recap or review on them and see if they bring back any old feelings or just find something new that we've never watched from back in the day. But there's a lot of good stuff I remember growing up with on Tubi.
Have you ever watched American Graffiti, the George Lucas movie?
Which is just to celebrate its 50th anniversary, and that's a really cool hot rod movie with Harrison Ford, and a lot of people are in there. I love that movie. A lot of cool cars.
Yeah, I just bring it up because I just watched that. I had never seen it, and I was like, I need to see the movies that George Lucas made that aren't Star Wars, and I watched it for the first time.
Okay, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything at all. I don't want to hear your reaction. I think that is the movie we got to do this coming week. We're going to do American Graffiti. It's perfect timing with the 50th anniversary. George Lucas non-Star Wars film with Ron Howard and Harrison Ford and Richard Dreyfuss. And I love cars.
Let's do it. Let's have like a retro review American Graffiti because I have a lot I can say about it.
We'll do American Graffiti and maybe Ahsoka. The first couple episodes, whatever they drop, I think, or whatever they do. We'll do that, I think, is what we'll do. So a little heads up of you're hearing the planning as it happens, guys. This is how it works.
This is great. Yeah. See how the show's made.
Yeah.
And look behind the curtain.
Exactly. This is great. And if you haven't yet, check out our previous episodes, please. This is episode 6. We're going to episode 7 now. And you can check out all my Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents podcast, all the interviews with directors and actors and producers and more. And that's all on the Nerdtropolis Podcast Network. Once again, Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on Twitter, at Drew Munhausen on Letterboxd, over at Fresh Out the Podcast. All over the place.
Yeah, so stay tuned for another episode. Thanks again for joining us for the Moviegoers Society podcast. Once again, I am Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.